Andrew, is Will joining us this morning?
He should be joining us. He may be a few minutes late.
Okay, I'll let him in. Sorry, I didn't have my camera on. You were probably wondering who the voice was.
Oh, I was looking around. Where are they?
Like, where are you sleeping? Okay, the video guy is now streaming us live.
I'm going to call us to order in about 1 minute and do a roll call.
I'm sorry, I'm here now. Had a couple things going on. Bill Carriger.
I'm here.
Robbie Tester.
Here.
Ken Huffine.
Here.
Steve Light. Jody Jones.
I would like to get with you to talk through.
We have 3 present, 2 absent.
All right, we have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. First item of business, if we all would bow our heads, and I'll lead us in prayer this morning. Lord, at the start of each day, help us to recognize you above all else. Enlighten the eyes of our heart that we may see you and notice how you're at work through our lives. Give us wisdom to make the best choices. Fill us with a desire to seek after you more than anything else in the world. Amen. All right, we've got, we'll see if Jody shows up here in a little bit, but we will proceed. The first item we've got is we need to determine that this meeting was necessary to carry out essential functions of the governing body. This meeting was held with CIA committee members and commissioners participating electronically pursuant to the Open Meetings Act in accordance with the Governor's Executive Orders 16, 34, 51, 60, 65, and 71 regarding limiting gatherings to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 and allowing public meetings to be conducted by electronic means. Members of the public were given live access to the Washington County YouTube channel and streamed through the county's website. We need to have a roll call vote on the determination that this was needed to be meeting was needed to be conducted electronically. So,
Chairman Carriger.
yes.
Commissioner Tester. Commissioner
Yes.
Huffine. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Huffine.
Yes.
Commissioner Light. And Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have 4 present.
All right, good deal. First item is approval of the minutes from the January 7th meeting. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Ken?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And Sheriff, you'll do the roll call vote for the approval.
Chairman Carriger.
Yes.
Commissioner Tester.
Abstain.
Commissioner Huffine.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
3 yes, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. The minutes are approved. All right. Next, we have a presentation from Dr. Joyner. And Jody, since you know these folks, would you mind doing just a little introduction on the State Climate Office in Northeast Tennessee?
Well, I'm super pleased to have Dr. Joyner and Will Thompson here with us today from the Geosciences Department at ETSU. Just an informal comment, the two of them have been really very progressive in their leadership of that department's efforts to integrate with industry partners and government partners in our community for as long as I've known them, for years. In fact, Mayor Grandy has deployed Dr. Joyner on emergency task force and other kinds of projects. He's well used by our city government. Students of the program have active engagement and learning experiences in our community because this ETSU program is so well integrated within our community. So I'm really proud about that, and I also was so proud to hear about the State Climate Office, and thought maybe that you all would like to hear a bit about how that relates to economic development and other relevant issues that we discuss in this committee all the time. So thrilled to have the two of you here. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Jody. It's a very nice introduction. Are you okay if I go ahead and share my screen? Okay. Okay. Can everyone see that PowerPoint okay? All right.
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you guys for having Will and I today to this meeting. We really appreciate the opportunity and just want to talk to you a little bit about what this means, having a state climate office. Will and I have served the role as an acting state climate office. We've had the Tennessee Climate Office around for about 4.5 years, actually. But we just gained official status through national recognition, through the national or the American Association of State Climatologists. And so it is a big deal. Normally this type of, every other state except Massachusetts has a state climate office, and it's normally located at your larger ag school or flagship university, but there are another number of other universities similar to ETSU that host theirs. Kentucky is the best example. They have their state climate office at Western Kentucky in Bowling Green. So I want to just kind of briefly go through what we do. What is the state climate office? What do we do right now? What kind of services do we offer? And then I want to get into what we would like to do, show you some example things that we kind of these one-off products that we'd like to build on or services we'd like to build on, and then hear from you, how, based on what you see or what you've heard, how you think we can help. How can we contribute to Washington County and kind of the goals of your committee. So some of you may receive these every month. We send out an email with a climate summary. What this does is it summarizes what happened the month before. So I've just got some infographics here looking at mean temperature and precipitation from December of this past year. You can look at areas that were warmer than normal, cooler than normal, wetter than normal, and drier than normal. We also do a lot of other things within that report. We include storm reports, crop reports, soil moisture. We really look at drought. One of the big things that we do, and I'll get into this in a second, is monitor drought weekly across the entire state, and we provide feedback to the U.S. Drought Monitor. We look at stream flow, we look at fire potential, any event summaries, so the snowfall over Christmas, that was our story of December, and so we look at those things and provide information and context. And we also look at the Climate Prediction Center's monthly outlook for the following month. We also look at comparisons. So these are some products from last year as well. Last year in Washington County, it was the second wettest year on record. For some of our other area counties, it was their wettest year on record, and there was definitely this kind of west to east gradient. Last spring, we also had a early first leaf, really early in some places, over a month. This has really big implications for agriculture. We've had several years here where apple orchards and apple blooms have come out too early, and then a freeze will come in and kill them. So pretty big impacts to agriculture that the climate has in our state. As I mentioned earlier, we provide input to the Drought Monitor. This was our last, at least in our region here of Tennessee, somewhat large drought event was in fall of 2019. We had this flash drought where everything was okay into July, August that year, and then all of a sudden we had multiple degradations on the Drought Monitor, and we moved into this kind of flash drought event. And I live in a more rural area of Washington County, and my neighbor, he was not able to get a fall cutting of hay, and I know a lot of other farmers were in that situation. So we take a look at that. We provide feedback for that. For that particular event, I was actually contacted by the Weather Channel to do an interview about what's going on in Tennessee and how does this maybe compare to 2016 when we had the major drought leading up to the wildfires. So here's a summary of that. You can see at the bottom, July, we were doing okay, not really hardly any drought except near Chattanooga. And then we had multiple degradations going into October, and then we had rainfall, and we came back out of that drought. We also do hazard mitigation planning. And so kind of keeping on the theme of drought here, we did Sevier County's hazard mitigation plan, which was just approved by FEMA last fall. For those of you who don't know, every county is required to have a FEMA approved mitigation plan. If they don't, then they're not allowed to get certain types of post-disaster and pre-disaster funding. So these are critical. Washington just finished their update and it was approved. So Washington County has an approved updated mitigation plan. But we do mitigation planning for any counties that need that. We also provide parts of mitigation plans like climate risk assessments. So this is looking at drought over the past 20 or so years in Sevier County, see when that happened, these timelines, and how often, what percent of time Sevier County was in drought in this example. And then we also do modeling. And so this is just an output of a model for wildfire risk, which is a huge deal in many parts of Tennessee, but certainly in Sevier County where they had the major wildfire in 2016. For ETSU, we also did a mitigation plan for them and did the climatological analysis. So these are just a few of the maps and products from there, Climograph, that kind of basic information. We also looked at other hazards you may not think about as much, like tornadoes and hurricanes. We have had a lot of rainfall from hurricanes, although we don't get a lot of very high winds. They're usually downgraded to a tropical storm by the time they get here, or a depression. And then our tornado densities. We have tornadoes in our area, but not as many tornadoes as other parts of the state, but it's still a risk. And so kind of doing some quantitative analysis on those sorts of things to understand our risk. This is a really interesting map. Will made this. This shows our 100-year or 1% 1 hour extreme rainfall estimates and 24-hour extreme rainfall estimates. This is critical in understanding, how heavy is a rainstorm? How large is a rainstorm? What kind of context should we put that in? We have flooding in downtown Johnson City. Is it a 100-year event? Did we have X number of inches in how many hours? What is the concern there, and how should we better plan for these types of events? So this is some analysis that we do. So what do we want to? This is a picture of a weather station that's part of a mesonet in Kentucky. So a mesonet is a series of research-grade weather stations, and Kentucky and Oklahoma have the two best mesonets in the country. They use these extensively for a number of things. And so over here on the left side, you probably can't see it too well. It kind of showcases, I can provide these slides to everybody too after I'm over, so you can look at it a little more closely. But a really high quality weather station will have your wind sensors on top, temperature sensors at different heights, so you can monitor temperature inversions. You're looking at radiation, you're looking at humidity, you're looking at soil moisture at different depths. These can be critical variables for farmers. This could be for TDOT, any number of users. TDEC could be using these. Kentucky, they use these extensively. So over here on the right side, I've just got a few examples from across the country of what people use them for. Anybody who has a mesonet uses it for drought early warning. Soil moisture, you can start to see changes in that before you can maybe notice changes in plants or kind of more visible changes. So it's used a lot for drought early warning, which we do a pretty poor job in Tennessee of looking at early warning. And also a couple of states have developed a cattle comfort or cattle stress index. A lot of states have also developed a heat stress or heat vulnerability tool using their weather stations. Out in southeast Missouri, they have these types of stations, and they look at predicting when you should spray pesticides. And so they specifically look at dicamba, which has drifted into other fields. And so that's been a really big issue out there, and they've had a lot of crop loss. And so once they deploy these stations, then they've been able to drastically improve when they should spray. So they know when there's a temperature inversion, when their wind speed and direction is not good for spraying. And then it's also drastically improved forecasts and extreme event planning. In Kentucky, they've used these to better plan for, give them a little more lead time on potential tornado activity. This is an example of North Carolina's heat health vulnerability tool. We would love to create something like this in Tennessee. They did a multi-year study looking at how much of an increase in emergency room visits happened during certain types of heat events once heat or heat stress goes over a certain threshold. Will and I presented some of this at the Tennessee Public Health Association conference last year, or in 2019, and they were really interested. Some of the school board members there were really interested because they were like, well, how long should we allow our students to go out for recess, if we're in a heat wave in August or September? And that was a really good question. And so we could develop a tool where it'd be on their phone and it could say, okay, 15 minutes today, 10 minutes today, before you go inside, or make sure you have water. Those could be pretty critical. Delaware developed this weather hazard index, and so we had a student develop a weather forecast hazard index for Tennessee. This was a one-off product. It didn't go past that student's thesis work, but we could finesse a product like this. And so emergency managers across the state, we've presented this to them, and they've been really interested in it because this can also be an app on your phone. It could send you emails, text messages, those sorts of things to say you're going to have these types of hazards within the next 3 days impacting your area. And it's a really fine resolution because we're pulling it from the National Digital Forecast Database. We can develop other indices for that, county-specific indices, those sorts of things. We'd love to be able to do that. Some of the other things that we've collaborated with other folks across the state and at ETSU. There's a lot of people working on the relationship between heat and health, and so there's a couple of projects here. This was looking at some farms in Cott County, and some sensors were put out on those farms to measure on each day if certain heat stress levels were surpassed. This was a look at all of East Tennessee and comparing heat wave events with how do we quantify heat wave events. And so we provided some information and data for these products. Some of the other ideas that we have that we'd love to explore a little bit more, we've worked with TDEC on this first one, trying to submit a few grant proposals to do workshops and training for community leaders. We would call this the Tennessee Resilience Academy. I've spoken with a few of you guys about this as well. This would be really neat, and we would have Johnson City and Memphis as the two test cities. And so we would run this type of workshop here, gather information, provide information like, okay, if you're looking for these return periods on rainfall, where do you look? How do you take that information and make it applicable and usable to your neighborhood or to your community? And then we also would love to develop and coordinate a statewide drought response committee. A lot of other states have this, and they're coordinated by the state climate office. And since we're official now, it could be a good opportunity to pursue that. We want to provide climate information and risk assessments to improve economic growth. I know that with the mitigation planning we've done, the community planner or the planners in those communities have been part of the stakeholders, and it's really good for them to be involved because we start looking at where do we have repetitive loss structures, where do we see repeat flooding, where do we see these other hazards kind of flare up, where should we develop, where should we not develop, are questions that could be answered with climate risk assessments. And then we provide climate data to Metro Transit planning organizations. Of course, Johnson City has one, Kingsport has one of these. Most of the large cities in Tennessee have these, and they've reached out to us before as well to ask for extreme event kind of climatologies, frequencies, return periods, and how they may impact planning. Coordinating with TDOT, they have this road weather information sensor system that they've kind of redeployed to kind of work with them on improving transportation needs. And then with TDEC, they've reached out about air pollution monitoring and some of their resilience and sustainability efforts. So that kind of brings me to the final slide here. How can we help? I would love to hear from you guys about what maybe climate data or climate information or climate services you think Washington County could benefit from. I've got these images up here. You're probably familiar, certainly with the first one, Founders Park downtown is an excellent example of a flood mitigation project that between it and some of the other projects downtown drastically improved economic development in that area by reducing nuisance flooding. And so those types of projects are really, really well informed by climate risk assessments and by detailed flood analysis using the highest resolution spatial data you can get, good elevation data, and then really good understanding of return periods of certain events. How often do we see these 50-year or 100-year events? Have we seen more of them in the past couple of years, or what's the impact here? And then down at the bottom, maybe not as familiar with this, this is near Willow Springs Park off of Huffine Road. It is, and this neighborhood, or a couple of neighborhoods here, have flooded several times since I've lived in Washington County, which is about 8 years now. And anytime there's a large rainfall event, it seems like this area is flooded. They actually had to do a swift water rescue, I think, 2 years ago in this area. And so this is an area that we have to consider as planners or as developers, or there's money, taxpayer money, that goes into solving these problems. And so maybe mitigating that risk before it happens is good. And then after something happens, figuring out how to solve that problem, and climate data can help is basically what I'm saying. So I think with that's about all I had, and I wanted to open it up to any questions and kind of try to answer some of those for you.
Well, if we don't have any questions, Dr. Jordan, how can we get on your email or mailing list? I'd like to find out more about what you do.
Sure. You can email me direct. I got my information up here. You can email me directly. My email down here at the bottom is joynert, JOYNERT @etsu.edu. And now that we have an official state climate office, we have an ETSU email for the state climate office. It's tnclimate@etsu.edu. And we've got our website here. I'm trying to work with ETSU to shorten the link so that it's not so long. I'm hoping that we can get it to etsu.edu/tnclimate so that it's easier to get to. We do have all of our monthly summaries. When I showed you on the first slide there, all of our monthly summaries are archived on our website. But I can send those out to anyone who wants to see them and add you to our email list.
Yeah, I would maybe check with Sherry or Susan and get our email address. I for one, would like to be on your mailing list.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, and Andrew, do you have a number? I'd like to have some follow-up conversations. Obviously, I'm well aware of the flooding issue there.
Right. Yeah, my cell phone is that's the easiest place to reach me now, and I'm not in the office all that much. My cell phone is 704-221-4149.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for your time this morning. Great presentation.
No
Very
problem.
informative.
Any questions or comments before we?
Dr. Joyner, excuse me, Commissioner Carriger, this is Allison Wilkinson. I'm the county attorney, and I'll be emailing you to request a copy of this presentation. It'll be in the minutes that way. You don't object to that, do you?
No,
and
I
that
don't.
way everyone will have it. We'll have all that contact info for you. So you'll get that email from me shortly. Thank you, sir.
Sure, and there's a couple of notes in the notes section on the PowerPoint that could help better explain the slides if anyone needs that.
That'll be in the minutes from this month's packet. Thank you, Dr. Joyner.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments following Dr. Joyner's presentation? Dr. Joyner, thank you. We appreciate you being here, and Commissioner Jones, we appreciate you introducing this gentleman to us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to have a presentation from Alicia Summers on site development grant application. Alicia.
Thank you, and let me share my screen. So I wanted to give you all an update this morning on the activity in the industrial park, and then also talk a little bit about a grant opportunity that we have. So just to give a quick overview of the industrial park, so we have that 375,000 square foot facility available, the former ALO facility. So we're doing some marketing on that, and we've had prospect visits. We also still have the 25-acre pad-ready site available. Of course, that's publicly owned. We're also doing marketing and hosting some site visits on that one as well. And then we expect notifications to come in the spring, but those are for water and sewer line extensions. We've also we've partnered with Atmos Energy, and they have extended the natural gas line down that newer access road down to the new cul-de-sac. And then, of course, the TDOT SIA State Industrial Access Road project is in process. And that, of course, came as a result of landing EBM Pabst. And so there's no cost to the county on that roadway extension. And that extension goes almost all the way out to Blaylock Road. And that's kind of a quick overview of what we're talking about today, the industrial park and the 37 acres. You all might, I'm sure, remember that about this time last year, we applied for and were awarded a site development grant for due diligence. That award was $94,500, and it was for a cultural review, hydrological report, wetlands mitigation. You can see the types of reports that we requested with that grant. So as of right now, we've finished a majority of those due diligence items, including the review, the hydrological. As a result of the hydrological, we had to do further investigation, which resulted in a wetlands mitigation plan. There is, if you're familiar with that parcel, there's a small cattle pond on there and a little bit of wetlands. We also completed the threatened and endangered species study and the ERT. The ERT, basically, if you think sonar into the ground, that gives us a better idea of what kind of boulders, if any, might be underneath there. And that helps us when we're planning on doing site development to know which places to try to avoid. We're also still working on, and it's almost complete, the grading plan for that 37-acre site and the overall master plan. Kind of, if you think in terms of where do we want to go from here for the master plan, we're looking at a larger area to the north of where we currently own some property and see some opportunities for us moving forward to expand the industrial park. And we did receive an additional grant of $10,000 early last summer for the additional due diligence that was required. And that was what I just mentioned a minute ago, the wetlands mitigation plan. And also it required a little bit more of the cultural review. So what's next for us? So we have an opportunity to apply for the InvestPrep grant. You might remember that when we did the site development work out there, which improved the two sites and put in the access road, that we applied for and received the InvestPrep grant to help offset those costs. This year, because of COVID, they have dropped our match down from 50-50 to 60-40. And then the maximum award for this grant is $750,000. So I'm working on that grant application now. Mind you, it is, and I'll show you in another slide or two, the timeline on this. We have done an interview with the consultants for the grant, and that interview allowed us to move forward in the process to apply for the up to $750,000. What we're working on right now is a step 1 application. It doesn't require any signature or authorization and no commitment of funds. So it's just one step in the process. And what we're going to include on our application, again, this is on that 37-acre site, is some stormwater detention, and that would be up in that area where the wetlands area is, an access road to actually get to the site from the new road that TDOT will be putting in, and site grading on that 37-acre site. So here's that timeline I was talking about. So our step 1 application is due at the end of this month, and then it moves on to an application review call to see if it's something that they might be interested in helping us fund. And that kind of decides whether we move on into the process. In May, KPMG, the consultants, will shortlist for site tours. So they'll want to either come out or do a virtual site tour to get a better idea of what we're applying for. Pending the result of that shortlist site tour, we may be asked to apply or to move forward into the step 2 application. That one will be due at the end of May. I anticipate with the step 2 application that we'll be asked to provide a commitment of matching funds for that. We'll do site tours again in June. Again, those will either be in person or virtual, depending on the conditions. Will be evaluated in June, and then KPMG and TVA will do their Invest Prep award offers in July. So this is kind of a 6-month process moving with this particular grant. So why do we want to apply? So we know that we have a lack of industrial use inventory, so sites. So basically what we have left right now in Washington County is the 25-acre pad-ready site. That's what companies are looking for, the pad-ready sites. I did a search in Northeast Tennessee, and there are 2 pad-ready sites about the same size as ours, a total of 2, including ours. And then there's one additional site that can accommodate a build-out up to about 420,000 square feet. I did a larger search on TVA sites, which is the database of all the buildings and sites for industrial use within TVA's service area, which is a 7-state area. And there are no buildings available between 200 and 300,000 square feet, no buildings. And that's going to be important here in just a second. So again, this is where we are today in Washington County. We have 1 site ready, and then we have 1 site of completely undeveloped land. It was former agricultural land, so there was hay and a few years back some cattle.
Alicia, can you go back 1 slide really quickly?
Certainly.
So there are 3 pad-ready sites in Northeast Tennessee, and one of them is one of the ones you have on the next slide.
Correct.
Okay, keep going. Thanks.
Yep. So to further define the why, so we looked kind of at market demand, and what I looked at was the last 18 months. What has come in that 200 to 300,000 square foot range? And we looked at, and we're not able to submit for 10 projects that came in over the last 18 months. And you can see the average capital investment on that was $32 million. Average number of new jobs, 184, and the average square footage was 225,000 square feet, which falls right in that category of 200 to 300,000 square feet where there's absolutely nothing available. So the other thing we look at when determining what exactly our needs are is the clearly defined market need, and we do that by tracking the types of projects that have been coming in. We look at our missed opportunities and why we were excluded. And then we look at new market opportunities. And like we just talked about, there's no product available in this size range. So the solution would be to have a 225,000 square foot pad ready site. So that will enable us to submit for projects in that range. And then just to remind you all, we went through this same process. We applied for the TVA Invest Prep grant and the state site development grant, and were approved to do that project. And as a result, we landed EBM Pabst on our larger site with a $37 million capital investment and 200 new jobs. So there's the return on investment. And then just to remind everybody, we just want to keep moving forward that site development work does not happen overnight. We being the county, owned that property in the industrial park for probably about 10 or so years. And literally nothing was done on that property for about 7 of those 10 years. We obviously didn't land anything in there. It was greenfield site, former agricultural land, still growing hay on it. We did that site development work on it, which took us almost 2 years to prepare 2 pad ready sites and an access road. And then we landed a project in there. But I just want to remind you all that none of this happens overnight. We bought that 37 acres 3 years ago in January. So it takes time to get product ready. So we need to try to focus some on getting things in the pipeline to keep moving forward. If we do, hopefully, fingers crossed, land something soon on the 25-acre site, we will have no inventory left to recruit more companies. So, and then I'm happy to answer any questions, but I did want to throw one other thing out there. We're seeing a lot of activity right now, and I wanted to see if you all would find any benefit in me coming to the committee, to the CIA committee meetings on a more regular basis, maybe every other month or so, maybe every month, whatever you all.
I think that's a good idea. Every other month is a good idea.
Okay, I will certainly do that. And then I'm happy again to answer any questions, but again, I'll be applying for this TVA Invest Prep grant. Fingers crossed we get selected for a site visit and then asked to move forward with the step 2 application.
We'll open it up for questions. Are there any questions of Alicia?
Yeah, Alicia, I've got one here. So just want to confirm, I understand that we could get up to 750,000, but that's a matching. So we would need the 750 to match, correct?
No, it's a 60-40 match. We would need about $500,000 to match on that one if we got the maximum amount. So our project, and we don't have all the estimated costs in yet. We will probably next week, but if we did get the full amount, our total project would have to be $1.25 million to do all of that work if we got the full amount.
Yeah.
And then there may be other opportunities like we did previously on the site development. There may be other opportunities for us to apply for additional funds, and our match with our TVA funds, if we get awarded that Invest Prep, can make the match on other grant opportunities. So that kind of cuts down on our match too.
Okay, I guess my next question would be to Mayor Grandy, is $500,000 within our budget?
Yeah, right now we don't have any money allocated for that, but we do, you may recall that because of the purchase of the land by EBM Pabst, we do have a reserve account that is designed for economic development activity, and we could utilize that fund or some of that fund to support this. So the answer is yeah, and the other piece about this is on that 37-acre site. There's Alicia talked about moving forward, and some of the grants that we have and some of the plans that we have worked on in the past have allowed us to begin the engineering process so that we're not starting from scratch there, and we are definitely ahead of the curve as far as actually getting this potential site developed.
Good. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from any of the members?
Question, if it's okay. This is really great, like long game information. Of course, you did a great job of helping us see that and understand the business rationale. But my sense is that this would be next year's budget in terms of the timing of the grant and when we would need to prepare a match for this work, like after July.
We would know, like I said, grant awards notifications will be coming out in July. Typically with the InvestPrep grants, we've got about 30 months to complete the project. But we would need, like I mentioned, for the step 2, I fully anticipate we'll need some sort of commitment,
Letter of support.
resolution or whatever from the county to complete that step 2 application.
That's a May timeline.
Yeah.
Great information. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful. And I love the idea of having you come every other month, and maybe we can even help you generate some project plan names, project names. It's been an interest of mine.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments of Alicia? Alicia, thank you for being here, and I look forward to you coming to the CIA committee every other month. Thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
Commissioner Tester, I just wanted to thank you, Alicia, for the information.
You are very welcome.
All right, in trying to help out Ms. Cantler, she has a prior engagement she needs to get to. So, without objection, we'll move her up next in the presentation to the committee. And this is amendments to the redevelopment and urban renewal plan. So, Diana, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love Dr. Joyner's presentation when he called the flooding downtown, the previous flooding, nuisance flooding. And I thought there's a lot of business owners and property owners would definitely say that it was nuisance flooding. And we're very thankful for that, for the most part, being taken care of. I'm going to just give you an overview of this amendment, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Wilkinson if she wants to chime in, certainly, because she's been a part of the process as well. We're presenting today an amendment to the redevelopment plan that encompasses all of the resolutions that have been passed by the county over the 12 years concerning that plan. This document also has clarification of the State Act of 2012 that was approved by the city and the JCDA. The goal of this document is to have one amendment that will be attached to the redevelopment plan and that all entities will agree on how the plan is followed. This document was created by Mark Mamatoff from Bassberry and Sims with assistance from Culver Schmidt, who represented the county's interests. The document includes 9 resolutions that the county has approved over the years, as well as the inclusion of the Tax Act of 2012 that the city and the JCDA passed in 2020. I'll be glad to go through each section if you want, or I could just address some questions, whichever way the committee would prefer.
Committee, what's your preference? As for me, I would just hit some of the highlights. I've read this thing a couple times.
Okay, perfect. So just to sort of hit some of the high points, section 2A is a restatement of the Tax Act of 2012. The one addition that really doesn't affect the county, but was part of the city's approval of the Tax Act is the JCDA can take 5% of the city's allocation towards administration fees. That includes our all the work that we have BCS do for us, our audit, accounting, our finance manager, a portion of his salary, some of the audit costs will be included in that 5%, but that is from the city's portion only. Section II, there's a clarification that this allocation is based on taxes collected and not using a base assessment method. We get into the majority of the next section is portions from the county's different amendments. 25% is withheld by the county for county purposes. The collected amount is a percentage of all property taxes collected in the county. It is not a, you don't figure the amount based on the actual collection in that district. You do use a percentage. Neither the city nor the county shall be required to allocate delinquent taxes that are collected. And then we have to put this caveat in there, mainly for the lenders that we have. But if the JCDA determined a specific parcel had paid their taxes late, the JCDA can request to the trustee that that parcel be paid as delinquent taxes. But it would be on the JCDA to investigate whether a parcel had not paid their taxes or paid them late. And this really is just for our lenders' benefit. Say one of our properties, in the development agreement, there's an agreement that they have to pay their property taxes. And so we put that in there so that the lenders would see that we have the option to go back and request those delinquent taxes. We understand that it's very difficult for both the city and the county trustees to figure what the delinquent taxes are on the district. And so so we would only do that if we had a property that had a development agreement and we found out that they hadn't paid their taxes or had paid them late. The sunset date is in there for December 31st, 2029. The county uses the 2008 tax year as their base year. The city uses 2006. The JCDA cannot have debt that exceeds 10% of the value of the real property located in the district, and the JCDA cannot incur any debt over $25,000 without county approval. That is hitting the highlights, but I'd be glad to address any questions that you might have.
Well, let's ask Ms. Wilkinson to step in here. And Allison, any comments you wish to make?
No, sir. I think, thank you, Ms. Cantler. That was an excellent overview. If any commissioner would like to know which resolution, et cetera, I can cross-reference it for you. But just to remind you, from the county's perspective, all of the amendment language that is incorporated in this document already has been approved by the county commission in a prior resolution, with the exception of this delinquent tax issue, which makes sense because, you know, she's explained that to you. But this does not represent a change in the handling. It really memorializes resolutions dating back a number of years, which again, I'm happy to step through with you. But thank you. I know that was really dense information, Diana, that you condensed really nicely. When a lawyer has nothing to add, it's high praise.
Any questions of Diana or our attorney this morning? Diana, do we need to or Allison, do we need to take action on this?
Yes, sir. You would need a resolution in order for this to go forward. And you may want to talk to Mayor Grandy as to whether or not, you know, there's anything you need from budget. I think it would really just be informational, but if you have any questions like that, it would be helpful to know before the full commission meeting. That would be my recommendation so that the law could be applied to specific facts.
Mayor, any comments you wish to make?
I think that concludes the summary, and it is important to note that there's nothing new in this agreement. It really is just a document summarizing those referenced resolutions that have already been discussed. So no budget issues around this resolution.
All right. So I guess the motion would be that we send this to the full commission And with, I guess just to note that it doesn't bind us to anything. It's just memorializes past resolutions. I guess, Allison, I'm trying to figure out a resolution, a motion that we need.
I think really you've hit the big question, and you have a commissioner with a question, so I won't take a moment of your time here. You would want a resolution moving this on to the full commission for adoption to the redevelopment plan of 2011. I think that suffices what you need, isn't it, Ms. Cantler, for the JCDA's plan?
Yes.
And I'll wordsmith that with Ms. Cantler and Mamontoff and others, but generally your action is to move it on.
That sounds good to me. So there's a question?
Mr. Chairman, I did have, I'm not a member of your committee, but I did have a question, if I may.
You go right ahead.
And before I ask the question, I'll just thank Diana Cantler and our county attorney, Allison Wilkinson. I'll thank them and the mayor and others for the work they've put into this. As one of the county's representatives on the JCDA board, I am thankful to see this cleanup work, because it does clean up some stuff. I mean, when we've approved something new of late, the last couple of years relative to TIF, it's almost like assembling a puzzle to say, well, yeah, this, but that, and we had this resolution several years ago. So I think memorializing all the amendments and changes that have been made is good. So thank you for that initiative and work. The only question I have, when I read through this last night, I kept scratching my head relative to item number 4. Most of it I think I understood and made sense, but item 4 I kind of got lost in and didn't completely understand. And I thought perhaps the county attorney or Ms. Cantler, I thought one of you may be able to put it in layman's terms such that I could understand it. I know it's referencing the base year for calculation purposes, but I'm not sure that I realized that that was an existing component since we're not changing anything. And I just didn't understand it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So this is something that Mark Mamontoff and I both, sort of scratched our heads on. I came on staff and started handling TIF in 2014. So I wasn't part of the redevelopment plan when it was, and the urban renewal plan when it was amended in 2011. But at some point, and I'm not sure which, and maybe Rick's story, because he's been a part of the JCD for a long time. For some reason, the city passed their they passed the original redevelopment plan in 2006 and started using that as their base tax year. The county passed it either late 2006, 2007, something. I don't know. I really don't know, Freddie. That's Mark and I. The base year that the county has been using has been 2008 tax year. And maybe it was because just taking a time to get the tax base set in the county's designations, in the way their computer system works. I'm not sure, but Mark and I really didn't know why those 2 years difference in our base tax, but we wanted to make sure that it was put in this amendment because it was a little bit confusing because of the time that the original redevelopment plan was agreed upon. Rick might be able to answer that.
Diane, I just know that our initial presentation to the county commission was approved and turned down and then reapproved again, but I don't remember the 2-year gap in there, but I just know when checking the records when I came in as trustee is, our date has always been, the base date is 2008.
I can confirm for you that there was a resolution in March of 2008 that set out that the base tax amount used as the baseline for determining the tax increment would be measured as of January 1, 2008. And that we really appreciate Mamontoff and Ms. Cantler working through that with us, because just for your recollection, the increment, the date you start at to measure the increment is important. And so the county had been using 2008 to create that delta. And so JCDA and Johnson City agreed that the amendment would memorialize that practice, which was, again, going back to these resolutions that had been previously approved. So, Commissioner Malone, what that means is that the county will be using 2008, recognizing that the city has another date. So each taxing entity has its own formula for computation. Does that answer your question? It really is just about the historical administration of it.
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you. But it sounds as if there is a differential, if it would be less or a lower amount to the city, that they can adjust their year if it means that they would have paid more or less. I think I understand the explanation. Thank you. But I was the one statement there, if the amount of the TIF revenues allocated to JCA by the city would be reduced if the 2006 tax year is used, blah, blah, blah. So I think I understand, but it sounds like the city may have an option as to what might be best for them. And I was just trying to understand.
I think one of the things, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards and we can step through that. And I know as a banker, you could probably really put a fine point on it. But just remember, the general presumption is that the value in 2008 is higher the later year. And so the county is continuing to enjoy a smaller measurement period in computing that collection amount. And then as to the city, they'll be continuing to do it as they had been, is my general understanding. I haven't drilled into their obligations as much as I have the counties, but I'll look into that specifically in case it is pretty thick language. In case it comes up at the full commission meeting, we'll have an answer for you then.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I have one. This is Commissioner Tester.
Yes.
Just for clarification, we had a version of this emailed to us. I think it was on Tuesday, and then there was a version posted on the website, and then there was an update posted on the website. Just for clarification, which one is the last one?
So the difference is in section 4. We realized that the next to the last line said county, allocated to JCA by the county instead of in the manner provided. That should have been city. And so it was changed, and I think the correct document was put on the city's website, and I'm not sure which version that you all got, but there was one word that we realized should have been city instead of county.
And that's the one I circulated around with that, with the specific detail that Diana Cantler just set out. And Sherry Green is on the call as well, and she confirmed this morning where it is on the website. It should be that most recent version, and they were about, I think, 7 minutes apart. So those were the same afternoon. And I can confirm that, and that's the one that'll be in your packet as an exhibit to the extent you have a second on that motion and move to approve a resolution.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Sorry, has a motion been made?
Now, we need any other questions or comments, then we'll move to action. Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Ken?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we send this to the full commission for adoption. This is memorializing past resolutions. Sure. If there's no questions or comments, we're ready to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Or, excuse me, we have to do a roll call. Roll call, Sherry.
Chairman Carragher?
Yes.
Commissioner Tester?
No.
Commissioner Huffine?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
We have 3 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Resolution passes. And Diana, thank you. And
thank you
look
so
forward
much.
to hearing from you in the future.
I'll see you soon. Thank you.
All right. The last item, Susan was gracious enough to allow Diana to make her presentation. And Susan, if you're ready, we're looking at the social media policy.
You've got it. I'm ready to go. The social media policy was included in everyone's packet for this meeting. I'm just going to hit some highlights for you. This was is coming to light in case we do decide to move forward on social media. It's a pretty straightforward policy that would govern any social media that we did on behalf of the county, as well as give a little bit of direction to the office holders as far as how things would be handled. Basically, it falls into my office as far as administering the accounts and monitoring those as well. So if anyone has any questions for me on this, I'd be glad to answer them. Allison actually authored the policy for us.
You answered my question.
She can answer questions as well.
You answered my question. Any other questions or comments from our members?
I've got one. This is Commissioner Tester. The part in it about comments caught my attention. I think it's great that we can exchange information from the county and also citizens to the county, but it seemed like in looking at that it could potentially take an awful lot of somebody at the county's time to monitor comments and record them and delete them if necessary and all that kind of stuff. I'm assuming somebody's thought about that. Anybody want to comment on that? Susan or Allison or somebody?
We have, out of the Communications Task Force Committee, we did discuss this. There are several monitoring services that we can enlist as a county if we decide to allow comments on posts. We would not, if we decided to not allow comments like we do on our YouTube feed, we would be limited to only using Twitter at this point, because Facebook does not allow you to turn off the commenting option. You can do that on Twitter. So as we move forward with investigating social media, we could say we're only going to do Twitter.
Okay. And then you said something about there's monitoring services that you can use or something. Would you expand a little bit on that?
We currently employ one monitoring service just as a general messaging platform that we started with last year. We will be able to use one called Archive Social, which is relatively inexpensive to archive our social media since it does need to be part of a public record. Archive Social is the leading archiving software in the nation. In fact, that is what the White House used to archive all of President Trump's tweets. So it's widely used and known.
Okay. I saw something in there about if a comment need to be deleted, about emailing. I think it was Allison and the mayor and whoever else and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, man, if you could get hundreds or thousands of comments or something possibly. I mean, just depending on what it is or what's going on. And that seems like that could possibly bog down some people.
If you look around at some of the other county website, county social media pages, Carter County in particular, I would ask you all to look at. Their comments that they get from citizens are very few and far between. Citizens seem to respond more on the news media, Facebook post than they do the actual entity's post.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not, like I said, I think it's a great idea to be able to share information back and forth. I'm not trying to discourage that. I was just trying to think about, I don't know, worst case scenario or implications of that or whatever. So thank you.
It's a good thought.
Commissioner, if I could address, that was a very, very big concern from legal, and Susan is being very generous. I did not author the entire policy. She drafted one, and I just pulled in what I thought were legal concerns to make sure that the policy addresses the specific rights, obligations, and duties of constitutional office holders, because the communications director, of course, is with the county mayor. And I'm looking in here, I would direct you to it. Susan, you might remember, and from your perspective as commissioners, one of the most important things is that Chairman Matherly would speak on behalf of the commission, because the commission, of course, only speaks through the board, through its actions. Individual commissioners would not, that's a legal issue for your consideration when you're thinking of this, because this would be speaking on behalf of the county. And so each elected official would have the authority to make sure that the message, they're still the ones, controlling that message, because of course they know their business, they know their work, best of all, most of all. I do think that there's an option as a business. I've seen the Carter County social media, which goes out from the mayor's office, and the assistant there administers it. But there could be a way, for example, that we would have a business page or something like that, where then there aren't comments, because it could be very burdensome to determine which comments were and were not appropriate. And the county certainly does not want to be in the business of filtering First Amendment rights and other issues as to the citizens if they want to speak on an issue. So Commissioner Tester's comment is well taken, and it's one of the biggest considerations in any legal commentary that you read about social media for governments. It also impacts open record requests, because everything does have to be archived in a way that it can be retrieved as a public record. And so, there may be costs associated with that. So there are legal sides of that, what Commissioner Tester is asking. Susan, can you remind us where it is that who speaks for whom? I know it's in here, isn't it? I know that there were many drafts, yes, but that was in here, right? The final version?
Yes, it's in your final version. I think it is underneath. Maybe under legal concerns.
And we can direct through that, but just for your benefit as commissioners, you need to remember that the county always speaks to the county mayor. That's part of the social media as it currently exists. And media goes through the county mayor, and of course the communications director is there for the county. But any individual elected official, appointed official, or commissioner, speaking for the board, would give the approval, so that our communications director is not put in the position of trying to make sure she knows all the information at hand. So that's the legal side of it, so that you would see how it would operate in fact.
I think what you were looking for is under employee access and acceptable use, the last sentence, maybe.
Yes, thank you. I knew we put it in there somewhere, because all of a sudden I thought, what about the commission? Thank you, Commissioner Tester.
You're welcome, and thank you all for the comments on comments.
Mayor, if you got any comments, since you're the spokesperson.
It looks like he's dropped off the call, but I would like for y'all to know that to use Archive Social, which would archive everything, comments, it archives almost instantaneously. So comments that are removed by either us or the individual who made the comment would be recorded in a record, runs $2,388 a year. It's very inexpensive for the type of service.
All right.
But we need to address that at a later time.
If there's no other further questions or comments.
I've got a quick question.
Yes, go right ahead, Ken.
That's all right. Thank you. If we wanted to solicit communication, feedback, would it be feasible, possible to direct them to our website?
Absolutely.
I think it is. Would it be easier actually that way to keep our records ourselves?
Well, I would encourage us to have a separate record with the archiving of the social media, because that is part of an open records request. So we would need to employ that if necessary. In every post, and I've been doing these for years for other entities, mainly banks, you always direct folks to the website. for additional information. The social media posts are never meant to be the end all be all.
I think I'd love to see that. Just we want to get more people to our website, better format to communicate. So absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. If there's no other comments or questions, I believe we're ready to take some action that we would send this to the full commission with a recommendation for adoption. And we need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken.
Second, Tester.
Thank you, Robbie. And I think Commissioner Jones is gone. But Sherry, if you would do been moved and seconded, if you will do a roll call for us.
Okay, Chairman Carragher,
Yes.
Commissioner Tester,
Yes.
Commissioner Huffine,
Yes.
have 3 yes and 2 absent.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's attendance today and the commitment for the county. If are there any questions, comments before we adjourn? Well, without seeing any and without objection, we will adjourn the meeting. And I guess we need to do a roll call on that, Sherry?
Commissioner Carragher,
Yes.
Commissioner Huffine,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tester.
Good meeting, sir. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. Everybody have a great week. Thank you all for attending.
Have a good day.